Call the meeting to order. And again, I apologize for keeping all of you guys waiting. Is there a public hearing this evening?
You said there was no one on the virtual call.
Okay, great. So the minutes were sent out. Did everybody have a chance to review them?
Yes.
Someone like to make a motion to, or any changes? Someone like to make a motion to approve? Second? All those in favor? The minutes are approved. No public forum. Water. What do we got?
Sure. As probably people have heard, PFAS have been in the news lately. Here I'll talk about the issues they have in Westminster, so they're not affecting us. But the EPA did issue some new health advisories regarding PFAS. They haven't set any new regulations. They will in the next year or two. But the levels that they recommended that, water supplies below are just extremely low, below detection limits. So our detection limits now for PFAS are around 1.8 or so parts per trillion, and they're talking about levels that are 0.004 parts per trillion, like 1,000 times more that lower. So, but these are just advisories. What they think that they'd like to see people at or below, but they can't even measure. It's kind of it's not completely logical, given that they can only test down to parts per trillion a couple of years ago, got to that point. So, of course that, people are gonna be very concerned about that. We do have PFAS that has been detected in our water system. The compounds, there's 6 of them that they're concerned about at this point. There's actually 4,700 compounds altogether, but there's 6 of them that, that are on the list. The Mass DEP actually has stricter standards than the US EPA, but it's a total of 20 parts per trillion of those 6 compounds, PFAS compounds. We're at our highest sample's been 4.36, so we're well below the 20. And it was a combination. One was 2.2, and the other one was like 2.16. They were the ones that they issued the health advisories for, the PFOA and the PFOS. But like I said, we're well below what DEP's limits are, and US EPA's limits are still 70 parts per trillion. So, like I said, they kind of issued this ahead of that, but I'm not sure where they're going to go with the regulations. We did have a Zoom meeting with Mass DEP today, and basically everything's on hold. We're just following what Mass DEP requires us, because they are more strict despite these health advisories. These aren't regulations; they're just advisories. So we're just following Mass DEP's regulations, so we're in compliance at this point. So we need to watch that. We haven't seen anything go up or down. We've been around 2 on each of the compounds, which is near the detection limit. So we've actually had some that have been estimated, which are right at the detection limit. So, so we haven't seen anything go up or down. It's been steady over the last couple of years. Having said that, Mass DEP back in 2020, they actually tested a bunch of rivers and surface waters in Massachusetts, and even ones out in Western Mass. PFAS showed up in those water bodies. So it's in the environment everywhere. It's been around for decades, and now they're just kind of realizing how prevalent it is, and it doesn't go away. They're considered forever chemicals. They really don't break down too much, and they can accumulate in the human body. So people don't need to be alarmed about it. There's other ways of exposure that are probably worse than what we have in our drinking water. It's estimated that 80% of your exposure to PFAS is from things other than drinking water. So microwavable popcorn has PFAS. Your coffee cup, Starbucks, I probably shouldn't say the name, but but they have it in their coffee cups as well, and they're looking at phasing out coffee cups and things like that have that by the end of this year. So it's very prevalent. It's in non-stick. It was in non-stick pans. It's in stain-resistant carpets. It's in stain-resistant clothing, Gore-Tex. I mean, it just pretty much was used everywhere. So the fact that we see it in our water bodies is not anything unusual, because it is across there. We'd rather not see it, of course, but we're not seeing very high levels, and it's right at the detection limit. So we have seen it in the raw water as well as the finished water, so we know it's something that is likely coming from the reservoir, and it's there. But like I said, we're fortunate. A lot of water systems have much higher levels. But if anybody, in the public has any questions or concerns, they can reach out to me at the Water Division, and I'd be happy to answer their questions. So if anybody's watching, don't hesitate to give us a call. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on that. It's kind of a new world as far as, what we're going to have to be dealing with at some point. So it's until the EPA does issue new regulations, until they can get their detection limits down, because they can't really, if they want you to be below this .004, they need to be able to analyze for it, to achieve that level. So who knows when, they'll get to that point. So like I said, it's a bit strange that they issued some levels that, that can't be detected with today's technology, and it's probably a couple of years out before they can even do that, I would say. But, yeah, so. All right. Having said that, I know in Westminster, they've had, at the Mass Rat Natural Facility, it's been in the news a bit, so, and I've had some inquiries out there, whether it's in our watershed or not. It's not in our watershed, it won't reach our reservoirs, so we're isolated from that. But having said that, there's over 100 wells that are contaminated up in that area, and they're actually, maybe expanding the testing into Fitchburg in that area, near to that area, so we've sent some information to DEP about what properties are on public water and which ones aren't. There's some in the Westminster Hill Road area, Victoria Lane, that area too. So I know there'll be some testing there. We haven't got any updates, but I know DEP is looking into it. So the levels I looked at was a report issued, the weekly update report that's on the Town of Westminster site, which has a lot of information, showed levels, from a couple hundred parts per trillion up to 6,000 parts per trillion on the wells on site or right near to there. So it's, quite a large area. So yeah, but like I said, it's not going to affect our water supply. Ours are, fairly well protected. The sources in ours aren't from any source like similar to Mass Natural or industrial source, or, just something that's happened over time, whether it's atmospheric deposition or, maybe some septic systems, people washing their, stain-resistant clothing or their nonstick pans. I mean, parts per trillion is just a minuscule amount, so it doesn't take much to get into there. And because it doesn't break down, it'd take years and years to basically be diluted and carried out of the watershed area, so, which we don't anticipate anytime soon. But hopefully he'll work on discontinuing those compounds and chemicals, in products and stuff. It's still not completely being removed. They're working on it, I guess, to find alternatives, but until then, we'll continue to see it in various areas. So I don't know if anybody had any questions on that.
Is there any part of our water supply that's close to the area that's contaminated in Westminster?
Yeah, we've been contacted by Westminster as well as Mass DP as far as extending water mains up in that area. I think that's something they're going to be looking at.
If
So
we have enough water, if we could.
yeah, we do.
That'd
Yeah, yeah. 100 homes sounds like a lot, and it is a lot as far as wells. But for us, water supply wise, it's not a lot of water. We don't want to irrigate the whole golf course up there, of course, but we wouldn't be able to do that. But as far as supplying 100 homes, it wouldn't be a burden to our system at all. So, so we said that, we'd be able to help them with that. So I know they're looking at that. So that would be the ultimate, resolution for their situation up there. So. Yeah, so I just wanted to update people on that and just let them know, can be assured that, our water is safe and the levels we see are very low, and even compared to what, what's observed or seen in, supposedly pristine streams in the area in the western part of the state. So the city's done a good job over the 100 years and plus years, of expanding the protection of the watershed and making sure that developments and things like that didn't occur. So it's reflected that, we have very, very, very low levels. Like I said, I wish it wasn't zero, but I don't think that, and looking at the data the last few weeks and what studies have shown, just there's going to be very few areas where, it isn't some, if there's any type of residential development or any development or roads or anything, there's going to be a little bit there, no matter what you do. So, and then if we do upgrades to the plant, that's the only thing I'd like to add is that we'll look at, seeing what we can do to remove it completely, activated carbon or something like that. But it's not been an easy thing for some of the systems with treating for it, especially at the lower levels, to they're not constructing a whole new treatment like air has done for PFAS. They're trying to, add some, but, different filter media or something like that, activated carbon in there or resin beds or something like that. And it's worked to some extent, but they find that it gets expended fairly quickly. So not that there's a lot, that just that it doesn't get absorbed super well by, that media. So we'll kind of observe that. And like I said, at some point, the plant would probably need upgrades. It's both of them, well, the one in Westminster is over 20 years old. So we'll definitely be looking at that in the future to make sure that, if there's anything like that needs to be treated for, that we do integrate that into the design. Going on to the next item, as everybody knows, I'm sure there's the drought going on, so I think we're at level 2 or stage 2 was declared this past week for our area and other parts of Mass, mostly central Mass. So our reservoir levels are pretty good. They are. The last couple of weeks we actually did see them just kind of to drop a bit more than they had been previously, especially with the lack of rain the last couple of weeks. But we're also seeing a lot of evaporation, and now that the water table's down, instead of the reservoirs receiving some groundwater just coming into them, they're actually replenishing the groundwater table. So I'm sure we're losing a bit there, because even reservoirs that we're not using whatsoever, we're seeing them start to drop in the last couple of weeks. So having said that, we need to keep an eye on it, but because the city uses significantly less water than it did 10, 20 years ago, we don't have a real issue right now, unless it was to keep going on for a year or two. Next year, if we didn't have much, precipitation this winter, we'd have to have like a return type drought next summer without, getting the reservoirs replenished. But hopefully that doesn't happen. Some areas of country aren't so fortunate with the cycles that we have here with the rainfall and stuff. I mean, we've had some dry periods, but not, for an extended period for many decades. So we're fortunate in that respect. But we'll, I'll update you if, things change. So, last item is just materials and part shortages is really impacting us as far as getting anything, done. We can do the smaller jobs, but, our SCADA system we talked before is, has been delayed, and we're seeing progress there with some of the equipment, and we're working on getting, that all set for this coming winter when things, when the demand isn't so high, we could shut down portions of the regional plan as full as well to do the work there. So that's the plan. But, even parts, we had a pump station with some issues with the circuit breaker in there, which is a 225 ampere circuit breaker. It is older, but it wasn't available. A new one wasn't available. Rebuilt one wasn't available for weeks, and we had to basically rewire the pump station with the newer technology, which we really didn't, plan on or want to do. It wasn't as expensive as you might think, but so we have to develop these workarounds when we can't get materials. We had a backwash pump fail at regional plant. The new pumps 6 months out at least, so we've had to pull that one out and have it rebuilt versus purchasing a new one, but it is older. Fortunately, it was in fairly good condition besides, bearing and things like that, so we lucked out in that respect. So, but yeah, we're just seeing that, and I noticed that, we've been able to acquire chemicals, but there's been some delayed deliveries. We usually have plenty ahead of time, but some of them have been cutting a little bit close as far as getting those chemical deliveries. So, and I know that some water systems have had some troubles with chemicals that we don't use, but which of course they use. So it's something we need to keep an eye on. So, but it is impacting us. It doesn't seem to really be getting any better. I don't want to say it's getting worse, but when you have something break that you can't find parts for, then all of a sudden it's like it's not so good for you, of course. So hopefully things turn around, but I know even Unitil, we're looking at extending higher voltage lines up to our Marshall regulating plant to run a pump there, and the transformer there is like a year out, what Unitil has told us. So even though we can get the lines run up there, we can't get the transformer. So but the way things are nowadays. So, and like I said, anybody that in the public out there that has any questions about PFAS or PFAS in our water, feel free to call me at the water division, and I'll be happy to answer their questions and, hopefully address their concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, John. So what do we get for
Wastewater.
wastewater?
Excuse me. The first item on my agenda was the rain barrel program. It ended on June 30th this year, and we had the rain barrels distributed on July 9th. We had 81 rain barrels this year. which is lower than last year, but that could be either from the market being oversaturated or just people weren't aware of it. But it went well. Actually, Jeff Morosky showed up to help distribute them that day, so it was nice to see him again. And most of them, if not, we had like 6 that weren't picked up that day, but those are being arranged. They're seeking alternate dates to get them picked up, so I think we're down to only like 2 left. So that was a successful program. The next item is the West Plant repurposing project. As you know, we're seeking proposals to build to design, build, finance, own, and operate a biosolids treatment facility at Fitchburg at the old West Plant. On Tuesday, yesterday, we actually sat down with the sole proposer for it and was able to meet them, hear their proposal, and also ask them some questions that we had. And as you may well aware, the biggest question was PFAS. Because, you know, PFAS gets into the sludge, now the sludge may have a problem being disposed. Because this project, it's a energy renewable project, but with the methane, but also it's gonna produce a product called Canby soil. And it's used to mix with other soil as a filler. If the EPA makes stringent rules, then that product is gonna be, you know, up in the air. But they assured us that with everything that's going on, and they have this product going on in other parts of our country, that they can handle it, and they made means of addressing that problem if it gets to that point. They can still find disposal methods for it. So at the end of that meeting we had yesterday between the city and them, it looks like it's gonna go forward. We're gonna keep on progressing and see where it goes from there. So, any questions on that? Good, okay.
Good news.
The next item I have is odors coming from Grief, or Greif. I don't know how you say it, Grief. It's the sole remaining paper mill that we have. It's up next, across the street from the old West Plant. Lately, we've been experiencing an enormous amount of odor complaints. And since it's right next to the West Plant, some people think it's from the West Plant. And so the Board of Health is involved, we're involved, we're trying to find the cause of this. We brought Grief representatives into the city last week to sit them down, find out how we can resolve this issue. We asked them to bring in a third party to do some odor, you know, examinations to find out where the odor's coming from and what it could be. You know, they like to say it's us or the dump, but paper product has a unique smell to it, and we believe it's coming from them. But we're addressing it. We're trying to find the cause. One of the issues that it has is it does go to the West Plant. Their waste stream does go down to the West Plant. We pump it from there down to the treatment plant. It's open air at the West Plant, so there could be some odors coming from the plant, not to the extent that everyone's smelling, but there is some still there. So we've asked Weston and Sampson to see if we can remove the West Plant from the whole equation. You know, direct their pipe, their waste stream directly into the sewer system. So that's what we're gonna be looking at now. And remove the West Plant from the equation. It'll help out when the West Plant gets turned into the other item we have, and hopefully, you know, we can totally decommission anything with the wastewater up there. And we'll see where that goes. Any questions on that?
Okay.
Okay. Today we had a site visit from the EPA and Massachusetts DEP. They came out and did an inspection. There is a new head of the US EPA Region 1 office that does the inspections. Neil Handler, who used to be the person we dealt with the EPA, he's retired back in December. And so the new team came out, and also the DEP representative that does our inspections was there also. And we spent all morning going over how the consent decree has been addressed, where the upgrades at the treatment plant were. They're going to schedule another meeting to see how the CSOs and the sewer system has been addressing the consent decree. But we took most of this morning just touring the plant, showing them everything that's been going on. They were very pleased and happy with what they saw. Thankfully, our DEP inspector has been our inspector for close to 30 years now. So she's seen where we were and where we are. And she mentioned numerous times on how well things are and progressing. So we hope that we see a very favorable report. They may have some issues or concerns that they'll address, I'm sure, that they'd like to see, but overall, it was a good tour. It went very well. The collection system construction updates, the South Street sewer drain repair, that's scheduled to be completed by the end of this month, hopefully by August 1st, and then we'll go into the next change order, which will be address the combined sewers in the area that are adjacent to this. And that's part of our consent decree also, is to, if we find them, we need to address them. So starting August until probably November, we'll be looking at going through that whole list of items that they have and get some of those CSOs off our plate, which is really what the EPA likes to see. And the last item I have is the Westminster IMA, the intermunicipal agreement. They signed their copies. You got the copies there, so that item we can sign off on.
Great.
Any questions or anything?
Any questions? Okay, very good. Good report, thank you. Let's see, other business. Next month, there will not be a meeting. We don't normally meet in August. And so the next meeting will be the 21st of September here. Is there any other business? If not, I'll hear a motion to adjourn.
All motion. Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Yep.